I keep punching holes in oxygen like the atmosphere owes me an apology. Darker than my lungs when I rock it, so they launch into a socket where the air flows. Knocking out a bronchial, lock it in the cortisols. Talking like a hostile prophet, telling every outfit they collapse. This topic in the ribcage, hydraulic stopping, nigga got us, so my breathing goes. Touch it like a cigarette, push it in the silence, does gossip like a pussy, parabolic in the oxygen composite. Keeps denying any profits, so the brain can deposit any measurable logic in the adrenaline deposit. Keep you gibbering, a hostage in the tongue does. Touch it to the punchlines, plug it in the oxygen, block it like a petty narcotic. And I still caught a progress like a bit is exotic to the chest, go psychotic in the BP hypnotic in the airflow, robotic turns collapse episodic in the meltdown melodic to the lungs despotic in that shadow box. Some note to God.
Oh, side gen, swing that fist, punch that space, the wrong assist. Airflow glitch, cut that list, breath tax, who can't resist. Chest plate, jam that hinge, O2 debt and make it cringe. If you choke, no revenge, oxygen, afraid of fringe. You got claim that dent, arc be circling, no reset. Airquake, lungs upset, oxygen that overbed. Short burst, keep that rate, inhale, let's shun the narrow gate. If you drop, same old fate, oxygen it detonate.
I keep overthinking in hyperdrive with a dopamine overstreak turns a micro issue archive into panic classifieds. And the serotonin side eyes my impulse landmines while the ribcage hardwires into hostile guidelines and the judgment deadline signs collides in the sidelines, so the cortisol combines with adrenaline's enzymes and the lungs redesign every rumor in my mind to a glitch that aligns with the worst case headline. And the bloodstream refines the disaster enzyme that turns memory to landmines and logic declines while my conscience resigns and anxiety cosigns and the tongue undermines every hopeful win to the whims in the breath. Ever bronze in the chest plate guidelines, so where thinking becomes a martial art I never trained for.
Hyperdrive that jam that around. Overthink, but turn it down. Brain late like I phase it out. Circuit glitch, blackout shout. Hyperdrive.
I treat speculation like a beat promotion, where the serotonin demotion fuels a meltdown motion and the dopamine erosion dumps logic in the ocean, so the frontal lobe devotion become spoken and the impulse quotient doesn't authorize motion while the ego explosion writes fear in slow motion and the cortical corrosion files panic is emotion and every honest notion gets a hostile promotion and the bloodstream potion overpresses commotion until my chest locomotion tracks a runaway locomotive and the oxygen implosion cancels calms recommission, so the post superstition tries to weaponize suspicion and the non-one's prohibition keeps us denying intermission until the whole cognition turns collapsed. And I still label overthinking a full contact competitive hobby I never quit.
I built a sarcastic apology generator, pivot in every indicator in the guilt amplifier, so the dopamine evaporator prints my voice like a liar. And the serotonin in the fire calls sincerity said tired, while the ribcage amplifier turns panic to a flyer. And the conscious pacifier keys demand I retire, so I fake cry prior to emotional ceasefire. Then I trademark guy like a Mickey Mouse buyer, and the shame pair ride goes corporate messiah while I bury every failure in the PDF dryer and bury some regret like a hustler cried. So kid ass becomes a choir, and remorse gets drier, and sarcasm becomes a there for B I never signed.
Apology, counterfeit, sarcastic file. Steal that bit, great code that never fit. Press that down, but deal with it.
I treat confession like a clearance liquidation, war accountability, inflation turns remorse into a nation of sarcastic litigation and a guilt evacuation. So the dopamine vocation runs a fraud corporation while the empathy rotation clocks emotional starvation and the serotonin donation files hostile notation and the breakdown quotation becomes office automation and I co-sign devastation like a stock exchange citation and weaponized hesitation as a counterfeit relation while the lungs hit detonation and the post calibration turns apologetic creation and a panic narration and the humor fouling that he controls salvation so with meditation kissing the service home.
But deal with it.
Hell, this is 20s and pianos like Ayy, ayy, I file claims with malfunction. Soul insurance with a dopamine reassurance keeps denying all endurance. And the serotonin assurance stamps emotional outpourance. So the cortex concurrence drafts collapse as a preference. And the rib cage parentheses squeezes lungs for deliverance. All the judgment transference labels meltdown as a reference. And the cortisol surveillance sets adrenaline as a deference. So the bloodstream conference treats panic as inheritance. And the conscience deterrence becomes a hostile interference. While the trauma remembrance invoices childhood severance. And the impulse adherence keeps renewing mistransference. So the empathy penance overdrafts every penance. And I keep calling it failure and the administrative clerical glitch I can't fix. Stolen, flag that claim, fine print void, scrub that name, pre-X
is cop that shame, pay that fee, pass that blame, pre-X is I treat forgiveness like a process, back denial where the dopamine trial files recovery as a spiral, and the serotonin idol keeps rejecting any bridle, so the lungs go tribal and the pulse goes tidal, and the cortisol bridle starts assuming homicidal, while the impulse sidle draft collapse as a title, and the bloodstream bridle claims anxiety as vital, and the judgment recital bites regret is recital, and the trauma's revival monetizes my downfall, while the conscience libel sues calm for survival, and the empty's rival steals joy for archival, and the oxygen's arrival gets billed as arrival, until the nervousness Bible prints chaos as viral, and I call emotional damage a miss ongoing policy review with no payout date.
I keep punching holes in oxygen like the atmosphere owes me in a poly docket. And my lungs wanna rocket, so they launch into a socket where the air flows, knocking on a bronchial, lock it in the cortisols, talking like a hostile prophet, telling every alveoli that collapses the top in the rib cage, hydraulic starts panicking gothic. So my breathing goes toxic like a cigarette mosh pit, and the silence does gossip like a pause per provided in the oxygen can pause keys deny any profit, so the brain can deposit any measurable like in the adrenaline deposit keeps triggering the oxygen, the tongue does hostage till the punchlines clog it, and the oxygen blocking like a petty narcotic, and I still call it progress like a business exotic, till the chest goes psychotic and the BP hypnotic, and the airflow robotic turns collapse episodic, and the meltdown melodic to the lungs despotic, and I shut a box there like a ransom note to God.
OX jam, swing that fist, punch that space, feet wrong assist, airflow glitch, cut that list, breath text do, can't resist, chest plate, jam that hinge, O2 debt, make it cringe, if you choke, no revenge, oxygen, freight that fringe. Suffocate, claim that debt, breath berserk, no reset, earthquake, lungs upset, oxygen, overbet, short bursts, keep that rate, inhalation, but narrow gate, if you drop, same old fate, oxygen, detonate.
Hey, I'm striking instead of rim. Yeah. I speak drama as a second language, weaponizing every tangent in the cortisol spangled damage, while the dopamine mismanages and the serotonin bandages, turn confession into sandwiches, and my trauma disadvantage every solid disadvantage. So the ribcage man standards host emotional avalanches, and I span breakdown franchises like a crisis vending machine. Campus with an impulse pamphlet, sell anxiety semantics and the guilty panic antics. Reenact my theatrics until honesty becomes ceramic. It's insincerity goes tragic and the humor becomes magic. And remorse goes graphic, so I caption every habit like a public face havoc, turning rumors into traffic, and resentment automatic till collapse becomes elastic, and the pulse problematic, and I still call exaggeration.
Drain my Escon tongue, scan that pipe, it keep it young, overstate, load that lung, langite sharp, it acid sprung.
I translate conflict into gossip journal metrics, where the cortisol aesthetics run a meltdown parametric, and the impulse prosthetics trigger judgment alphabetics, while the serotonin critic skips emotional athletics, so the breakdown phonetics speak on grammar anesthetics, and the chest rate kinetics shred apology cosmetics, and the narrative genetics splice toxic endotetics, and telepathy poetics get replaced by hypotobitic cosmetics, and the bleeding anesthetics for the lungs with phonetics, while the punchline cosmetics mislabel my pathetic, then I subtitle pathetic as illegal dialectics, and I monetize hysterics like a clickbait relic, so I treat dramatic relics like a native speaker trait.
Drain my Escon tongue, scan that pipe, it keep it young, overstate, load that lung, langite sharp, it acid sprung. Drama. I keep overthinking in hyperdrive where the dopamine overstrift turns a micro issue. Archiving the panic, classifies in the serotonin side as my impulse landmines, while the ribcage hardwires in the hostile guidelines, and the judgment deadline sign collapse in the sidelines, so the cortisol combines with adrenaline's enzymes, and the lungs redesign every rumor in my mind to a glitch that aligns with a worst case headline. In the bloodstream refines a disaster enzyme that turns memory to landmines, and logic declines when my conscience resigns, and anxiety cosigns, and the tongue undermines every hope so design till the pulse overclimbs, and then the breath overgrinds, and the chest plate guidelines. Overthinking becomes a martial art I never trained for. Hyperdrive a jam that route. Overthinker burn that doubt. Brain lag phase it out. Sir quick glitch blackout shout. Jet. I treat speculation like a VIP promotion, where the serotonin in motion fuels a meltdown motion, and the dopamine erosion dumps logic in the ocean. So the frontal lobe devotion becomes rumor spoken, and the impulse quotient does unauthorized motion, while the ego explosion writes fear in slow motion, and the cortical corrosion files panic as emotion, and every next notion gets a hostile promotion, and the bloodstream potion overprices commotion into my chest. Locomotion tracks a runaway locomotive, and the oxygen implosion cancels comms recommission. So the post superstition tries to weaponize suspicion, in the lungs prohibition keeps denying intermission, until the whole cognition turns collapse to tradition, and I still label overthinking full contact competitive hobby. I never quit. Hyperdraft jam that route.
I run a caffeine power breakdown where my dopamine takedown turns espresso to a shakedown, and the cortisol playground becomes a ride in a takedown. So the impulse stakeout keeps surveilling every breakout, while the ribcage lay out, fast combustion as a way out, and the serotonin fade out, keeps denying any paid out. So anxiety payout goes to franchise burnout, and the bloodstream burnout till exhaustion as a blowout, while the ego blackout, treat precaution like a throwout, and my judgment sell out keeps returning every no doubt. So the oxygen go out, feels like cardiac show out, while my tongue does toe to toe with panic and a blowout, and the caffeine it fall out like a criminal with a go route. So adrenaline roll out becomes overclock roll out, and the muscle tight hold out keeps mending another timeout, but the impulse hideout has a meltdown buyout, and a organ will collapse like a lone shark tryout, until my lungs ride it and my ribs riot, and the pulse diet didn't ask quiet, so collapse turns private, and I label overthinking executive performance enhancement.
Caffeine, pull that plug, breakdown hit, shrug that hug, pulse up, chest goes thug, brain melt brew but chug that mug. Caffeine, pull that plug, breakdown hit, shrug that hug, pulse up, chest goes thug, brain melt brew but chug that mug.
I bench press panic with American maturity, with a serotonin disparity, calculates meltdown severity, and the dopamine dexterity, markets chaos is prosperity, so the ribcage polarity becomes a bankruptcy clarity, while the bloodstream polarity treats collapses solidarity, and the cortisol sincerity keeps feeling insecurity like a hostile posterity, and the judgment insincerity blends apathy is sincerity, so emotional hilarity thoughts flip in trauma to rarity, and the impulse temerity files cowardice as parody, so the oxygen scarcity turns breathe into vulgarity, and the caffeine barbarity overcharges my temerity to my pulse regularity gets replaced by hilarity, and the adrenaline polarity auctions quiet for hilarity, and my meltdown dexterity turns climax to familiarity, and I romanticize calamity like a royalty-free charity, into the chest plate severity refuses all therapy, and the diaphragm austerity rebounds against sincerity, cause the whole damn nervous system runs, yeah, the whole damn nervous system runs in an unauthorized fire was display inside my throat.
I built a sarcastic apology generator, pivot in every indicator, in the guilt amplifier, so the dopamine evaporator prints my voice like a liar, and the serotonin in the fire calls sincerity satire, while the ribcage amplifier turns panic to a flyer, and the conscience pacifier keeps demanding I retire, so I fake cry prior to emotional ceasefire, then I trademark ire like a Mickey Mouse buyer, and the chamber riot goes corporate messiah, while I bury every failure in a PDF dryer, and resubmit regret like a hostile acquired, so collapse becomes acquired, remorse gets drier, and sarcasm becomes therapy. I never signed.
Apple OG counterfeit, sarcastic file, I'm sealed that bit. Regret code, never fit. Press that stamp, I deal with it.
I treat confession like a clearance liquidation, where accountability inflation turns remorse into a nation of sarcastic litigation and a guilt evacuation, so the dopamine vocation runs a fraud corporation, while the empathy rotation clots emotional starvation, and the serotonin donation follows hostile notation, while then the breakdown quotation becomes office automation, and I co-sign devastation like a stock exchange citation, and weaponize hesitation as a counterfeit relation, while the lungs hit detonation, and the pulse calibration turns apology creation into panic nervous shudder.
Slow souls pressure retakes, so I rebrand devastation as customer service.
What up? What up? I got malfunctioning soul insurance with a trauma reimbursement. Keeps denying every claim like a bureaucratic furnace. And the cortisol deterrent starts inflating interference till the oxygen insurance keeps requesting further clearance. And the serotonin clearance keeps rejecting perseverance. So the dopamine adherence turns to manic disappearance. And I auction my coherence like a bankrupt appearance, while the conscious conference drafts emotional severance, and the heartbreak inheritance files legal deliverance. But the fine print vigilance is I owe for inconvenience, and the saddest jurisprudence does a hostile sentence, and the ribcage resonance triggers non-profit violence, and the bloodstream's insolvent when the panic is sovereign, and the lungs get incompetent when the nerves turn dominant, and the empathy's fraudulent when the humor goes confident. Then I file for forgiveness, but the policy's ominous, and the payouts anonymous, where the breakdown's autonomous. So I call it economics like I studied cataclysmics, while the chest goes ballistic and the breath unrealistic, and I still treat collapse like a customer service call.
So inside and say claim denied. Fine print hit, override, override. Choke my debt, classified, copay tears. I never pays, mail pace, X block the date. Soul insurance is no grace. Uplift it, no mistake. If you cry, then retake. My phone jump, no remake. Cover age, null and void, so deduct, overjoyed. If you break, they avoid. Insert gets destroyed.
I stay overthinking a hyperdrive, turning every minor outcome to a tragedy archive. When my frontal lobe heart tries to outsmart my hard drive, so the panic gets franchised and the rib case thrives on a cortisol landmine. Then my impulse buys in my bloodstream digitizes every rumor that implies I'm a glitch in disguise. So my logic downsides and the hope capsizes and the tongue chastises a goal I organize. So the doubt ties and my attention into lies and the breath atomizes every week and secondizes and the past supervises like a narcissist supervisor and the trauma merchandiser keeps reselling my demiser at a hostile unipressor with a meltdown advisor and a serotonin miser never funds my stabilizer. So the grief incisor keeps cutting my repriser to the oxygen's a miser demanding analyzer and the lungs energized starts charging tranquilizer and I treat collapse like a ass race I wanna win.
Hyperdrive has been that thought. Overthink it tight and not. Neuron loop, burn that plot. Circle smoky, use what's caught. Brain lag, jam that gear. Overload a volunteer if doubt speaks. Engineer, hyperdrive it, crash that fear. Reboot, no backup. Overthink it, jam that cup. Hard drive, shut that up. Mind corrupted, tear it up. Rewind, waste that time. Hyperloop on no design. If you choke, not a crime. Overthink it, double time. They out deep. All you gotta be. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I file claims with malfunction and soul insurance. With a dopamine reassurance keeps denying all endurance. And the serotonin assurance stamps emotional abhorrence. So the cortex concurrence drives collapse as a preference. And the ribcage parentheses squeezes lungs for deliverance. While the judgment transference labels meltdown as a reference. And the cortisol surveillance sets adrenaline as a deference. So the bloodstream conference treats panic as inheritance. And the conscious deterrence becomes a hostile interference. While the trauma remembers and voices childhood severance. And the impulse adherence keeps renewing mistransference. So the empathy clearance overdrafts every penance. And I keep calling failure and that administrative clerical which I can't fix. Yeah. Soul insurance, flag that claim. Fine print void, scrub that name. Pre-exist, cop that shame. Pay that fee, pass that blame. I treat forgiveness like a process back denial. Where the dopamine trial files recovery as a spiral. And the serotonin idol keeps rejecting any bridle. So the lungs go tribal and the pulse goes tidal. When the cortisol bridle starts assuming homicidal. While the impulse idle drops and knocks fast as the title. And the bloodstream bridle claims his idol. D is vital, writes regret as recital. And the trauma's revival, mine touches my downfall. While the conscience liable, sues come for survival. And the empathy's rival steals joy for archival. And the oxygen's arrival gets billed as a rival until the nervousness Bible prints chaos as viral. And I call emotional damage and it's ongoing policy review with no payout date.
Ay, that was cold. Ay, let's go. All my feelings in the firing squad formation, where the dopamine translation gets indicted for vibration, and the serotonin citation files a hostile limitation. So the chest rate litigation starts a panic demonstration, and the impulse administration grants collapse authorization. While the ribcage is legislation, drafts a lung amputation, and the judgment automation denies calms application. So the cortisol duration becomes crisis indication, and the oxygen migration gets detained at the station, while adrenaline inflation keeps demanding detonation. And my empathy foundation finds emotional probation, and the pen and evocation becomes hostile dictation. So the bloodstream occupation turns remorse into invasion, and the guilt's reputation acts like plague propagation. While my consciousness location goes into liquidation, and I still weaponize heartbreak like public execution. Theater, in my
theater. Rank squad, we kill them all. Post, code, watch it fall. Close, code, watch it fall. Let me be on my final call.
I treat fiction like a crime scene audit, where the dopamine finds it and the cortisol shot it. So serotonin dotted every bruise that plotted, and the trauma allotted, a collapse allotted with the impulse spotted. The relapse dotted, so the bloodstream rotted with a good
autograph this toxic sonic. Cause slaughtering cinnamon became a habit. In the absence of attachment is the brand I wanted. In the silence I flaunt it is the weapon I pocket. In collapsing all cute is the posture I marketed. So I stand over feelings like it's contracted.
Executioner, reload and re-aim.
Right.
Feel it, rains, find my wall. Feel it, Mary, watch it fall. Pose, hope, watch it fall. Abe, peel, final call.
I run a self-sabotage sponsorship with a dopamine scholarship. Keeps endorsing every dip like a hostile internship. While the cortisol worship does a meltdown dealership. And the impulse leadership keeps approving every slip. So the serotonin dictatorship denies emotional citizenship. And the ego judgeship grants his ass a membership. And I binge confidence censorship while the ribcage censorship turns oxygen to penmanship. And I autograph censorship like a hostile apprenticeship. Till the lungs get readership from anxiety, authorship. And I still call blowing up potential.
Sabotage, sponsor that, fund that loss, burn it flat, crash that move, brand the stack, fail your print, copy that. Sabotage, sponsor that, fund that loss, burn it flat, crash that move, brand the stack, fail your print, copy that.
I pitch collapse like a venture capital vision where the serotonin decision keeps denying pre-revision and the dopamine commission sells chaos like a religion. So the panic attrition becomes cognitive emission and the impulse ignition keeps green light and demolition while the cortisol audition picks breakdown as a mission and the rib cage ignition files grief as ammunition. And I monetize suspicion like a yearly acquisition and the past repetition does hot superstition and I still call deterioration sponsor content.
Sabotage, sponsor that, fund that loss, burn it flat, crash that move, brand the stack, fail your print, copy that. Sabotage, sponsor that, fund that loss, burn it flat, crash that move, brand the stack, fail your print, copy that.
I run bipolar victory laps with a serotonin collapse. Keeps rehearsing its relapse like a panic wire trap. And a dopamine slap keeps inflating every scrap. To the ribcage maps get rewritten by mishaps. And the impulse apps start demanding bigger gaps. What a judgment synapse. There's a kamikaze clap, so the conscience perhaps starts bribing every lapse. And the cortisol taps keep rating neural taps till the meltdown recaps. Turn confidence to craps. And I tongue welt raps to distract from synapse gaps. Where the pulse rate wraps around adrenaline traps. And I still call emotional whiplash athletic conditioning.
Bipolar,
Lap that win,
victory,
fake that grin,
crash and burn,
spin back in,
mood goes high,
those that's in.
those that's in,
I treat collapse like a podium finish where the serotonin diminish. Frames disaster like a Guinness, so the dopamine wishless sells hysteria as a business. And the impulse finish turns a breakdown to a scrimmage. And the cortisol image keeps encrypting every sentence while the trauma apprentice files stammering up for penance. And the panic attendance marks adrenaline tenants till the lungs independence goes to tax evading tenants. And the ego dependence keeps demanding transcendence till the post transcendence overwrites common sense. And I still chase that nonsense like a pie highlight rail nobody asked for.
I chew my conscience like nicotine, where the dopamine figurine keeps carving guilty figurines in a ribcage figurines. And the serotonin guillotine is a hostile figurine. So the conscience and smoke screen becomes a moral submarine. And the oxygen cuisine turns collapse into cuisine, while the ego's gasoline stokes regret into caffeine. And the impulse latrine keeps flushing discipline, so the bloodstream quinine turns remorse into morphine. And the lung serpentine does a panic serpentine, while the cortisol marine drops adrenaline marines. And the judgment ravine tries to bury self-esteem, and the trauma machine monetizes every scream. And I call compulsive regret a flavor I can't quit. Nicotine, bend that sin, to that conscience, drag it in. Pulmonary, burn that grin, oxygen that thin that wind. I tongue press guilt like a vapor rig ignition, where the serotonin addition keeps denying my permission. And the dopamine commission brands collapse as a mission, so the lungs demolition becomes a mandatory condition. The cortex is attrition, files remorse as tradition, while the impulse technician reprograms inhibition. And the bloodstream's transmission keeps redlining premonition, so the conscious omission sells shame as ammunition. And the cortisol jurisdiction index compass addition, while the empathy addition gets recalled from addition. And the pulse's rendition does a meltdown rendition, and the bike's dumb's petition squeezes air into submission until emotional nutrition turns to toxic mucin. And I call relapse true a subscription service with no cancel button. Nicotine, then that sin.
chew that conscience, drag it in pulmonary, burn that grin. Oxygen, dead in that wind.
I run a self-sabotage sponsorship with a dopamine scholarship. Keeps endorsing every dip like a hostile internship. While the cortisol worship does a meltdown dealership. And the impulse leadership keeps approving every slip. So the serotonin dictatorship denies emotional citizenship. And the ego judgeship grants disaster membership. And I binge confidence censorship. While the rib cage censorship turns oxygen to penmanship. And an autograph censorship like a hostile apprenticeship. Till the lungs get readership from anxiety authorship.
And I still cool, blowing up the team. Sabotage, sponsor that from the last one. From that lost, burn it flat, burn it flat. Crash that move, brand new spec, breaking out that.
Pitch collapse like a venture capital vision where the serotonin decision keeps denying pre-revision and the dopamine commission sells chaos like a religion. So the panic attrition becomes cognitive emission and the impulse technician keeps green lighting demolition while the cortisol addition picks breakdown as the mission and the rib cage ignition files grief as ammunition and I monetize suspicion like a yearly acquisition and the bloodstream condition treats regret like exhibition and the past repetition does hostile superstition and I still call it deterioration.
Sabotage, sponsor that from that lost. Fund that loss, burn it flat, burn it flat. Crash that move, brand new spec, fail a brand. I'm still cool, brand activation.
I speak drama as a second language, weaponizing every tangent in the cortisol spangled damage. While the dopamine mismanages and the serotonin bandages turn confession into sandwiches and my trauma disadvantages every solid disadvantage. So the ribcage band standards host emotional avalanches and I span breakdown franchises like a crisis vending machine campus where the impulse pampers sell anxiety semantics and the guilty panic antics reenact my theatrics until honest becomes ceramics and sincerity goes tragic and the humor becomes magic and remorse goes graphic. So I caption every habit like a public facing havoc, turning rumors into traffic and resentment automatic till collapse becomes elastic and the post problematic and I still call exaggeration.
Fluency on my resume, dramatic tongue, scan that fight, keep it young, overstate, load that lung, language sharpen, acid sprung.
I translated conflict into gossip journal metrics where the cortisol aesthetics run a meltdown parametric and the input prosthetics that trigger judgment alphabetics while the serotonin credit skips emotional athletics. So the breakdown fanatics could become grammar and aesthetics and the chest kinetics, red apology cosmetics and the narrative genetics splices toxic energetics and telepathy poetics get replaced by apologetic cosmetics and bleeding anesthetics fill the lungs with frenetics while the punchline cosmetics mislabel my pathetic then I subtitle pathetic as illegal dialectics and I monetize hysterics like a clickbait relic. So I treat dramatic relics like a native speaker trade.
Dramatic content. Language sharper, essence sprung.
I line my feelings in a firing squad formation with a dopamine translation gets indicted for vibration and a serotonin citation files a hostile limitation. So the chest rate litigation starts a panic demonstration and the impulse administration grants collapse authorization while the rib cage is legislation drafts a lung amputation and the judgment automation denies calm's application. So the cortisol duration becomes crisis indication and the oxygen migration gets detained by the station while the adrenaline inflation keeps the demanding detonation and my empathy foundation violence emotional probation and the panic narration becomes hostile dictation. So the bloodstream occupation turns remorse into invasion and the guilt's reputation acts like plague propagation while my conscience location goes into liquidation and I still weaponize heartbreak like public execution theater.
Feelings line that wall, fighting squad, kill them all. Postcode, watch it fall. No appeal, a final call. Final call.
I treat affection like a crime scene audit where the dopamine finds it and the cortisol shot it. So the serotonin dotted every bruise that plotted and the trauma highlighted, a collapse allotted where the impulse spotted, where a relapse dotted. So the bloodstream rotted where the guilt was spotted and the lungs forgot it and the conscience swatted every truth that got it to the judgment jotted, the denial dotted
salad. Another riot got it, and I still autobiography. This toxic son, because slaughtering sentiment became a habit. In the absence of attachment, it's the brand I wanted. In the silence I flaunt it. It's the weapon I pocket, and collapsing on cue is the posture. I market it, so I stand over feelings like that's contracted. Execution, reloading.
I run a caffeine power breakdown when my dopamine takedown turns espresso to a shakedown. In the cortisol playground because I riot in the takedown, so the impulse stakeout keeps surveilling every breakout. With a rib cage layout, files combustion as a way out and the serotonin fade out. Keeps denying any paid out, so anxiety payout goes to franchise burnout. And the bloodstream burnout, cells exhaustion. As a blowout with the ego, blackout treats precaution like a throwout. And my judgment sell out, keep returning every node out so the oxygen go out. Feels like cardiac show out when my tongue does toe to toe with panic and a blowout. And a caffeinate fallout like a criminal with a go route. So adrenaline roll out because of a clock rollout. And the muscle tight hold out keeps demanding another timeout, but the impulse hideout has a meltdown buyout. And a bargain will collapse like a loan shark tryout until my lungs riot and my ribs riot and the pulse diet. Then I quiet, so collapse turns private. And I label overthinking executive performance enhancement.
Caffeine, pull that plug, breakdown hit, struck that hug, pulse up, chest goes thug, brain milk brew, chuck that mug. Caffeine, pull that plug, breakdown hit, struck that hug, pulse up, chest goes thug, brain milk brew, chuck that mug.
I bench press panic with a member kind of jeopardy, with a serotonin disparity, calculates meltdown severity, and a dopamine dexterity, markets chaos as prosperity. So the ribcage polarity comes a bankruptcy clarity, while the bloodstream polarity treats collapse as solidarity, and the cortisol sincerity keeps building insecurity like a hostile pulse austerity, and the judgment insincerity brands apathy as sincerity. So emotional hilarity, souls flipping trauma to rarity, and the impulse temerity files cowardice as parody. So the oxygen scarcity turns breathing to vulgarity, and the caffeine barbarity overcharges my temerity till my pulse regularity gets replaced by hilarity, and the adrenaline polarity auctions quiet for hilarity, and my meltdown dexterity turns collapse to familiarity, and I romanticize calamity like a royalty-free charity, into the chest plate severity refuses all authority, and the diaphragm austerity rebounds against sincerity. So the whole damn nervous system runs an unauthorized fireworks display inside my throat.
I run bipolar victory laps with a serotonin collapse, keeps rehearsing this relapse like a panic wire trap, and the dopamine slap keeps inflating every scrap till the ribcage maps get rewritten by mishaps, and the impulse apps start demanding bigger gaps, while the judgment synapse does a kamikaze collapse. So the conscience perhaps starts vibing every lapse, and the cortisol taps keep reading neural taps till the meltdown recaps turn confidence to craps, and I tongue well raps to distract from synapse gaps, while the pulse rate raps around adrenaline traps, and I still call emotional whiplash
Athletic conditioning, the polar at that win. Victor, I fake that grin. Crash and burn, spin back in. Mood goes high dose, that's in.
I treat collapse like a podium finish where the serotonin diminished frames disaster like a Guinness. So the dopamine wishlist sells hysteria as a business, and the impulse fitness turns a breakdown to a scrimmage, and the cortisol image keeps encrypting every sentence, while the trauma apprentice files stamina for penance, and the panic attendance marks adrenaline attendance till the lungs independence goes to tax evading tenants, and the ego dependence keeps demanding transcendence till the pulse transcendence overwrites common sense, and I still chase that nonsense like a
bipolar lap that win. Victor, I fake that grin. Crash and burn, spin back in. Mood goes high dose, that's in.
I
I chew my conscience like nicotine, where the dopamine figurine keeps carving guilty figurines in the rib cage figurines and the serotonin guillotine. Does a hostile figurine so the conscience is smoke screen becomes a moral submarine and the oxygen cuisine turns climax into cuisine while the ego's gasoline stokes regret into caffeine and the impulse latrine keeps flushing discipline so the bloodstream quinine turns remorse into morphine in the lungs serpentine does a panic serpentine while the cortisol marine drafts adrenaline marines in the judgment ravine tries to bury self-esteem and the trauma machine monetizes every scream and I call compulsive regret. Nicotine bend that scent to that conscience drag it in pulmonary burn that grin oxygen that defend that win. I tongue press guilt like a vapor ignition where the serotonin audition keeps denying my permission and the dopamine commission brands collapses emission so the lungs demolition becomes a mandatory condition and the cortex is attrition files remorse as tradition while the impulse technician reprograms inhibition and the bloodstream's transmission keeps redlining premonition so the conscious omission cell shame is ammunition and the cortisol jurisdiction and the dice con for sedition while the empathy addition gets recalled from addition and the pulse is rendition does a meltdown rendition and the diaphragm's partition squeezes air into submission until emotional nutrition turns to toxic musician and I call relapse true in the subscription service with no cancel button.